All right, hour two, Sean Hannity Show. Write down our toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. We're looking at the legal and constitutional right of the president to enforce the laws regarding immigration and the travel ban, and why it was the right time for President Trump to order the firing of Sally Yates last night. Look, this was obviously a political move on her part. I'd love to know who she spoke to take the stand, but when she said she would not defend his executive order imposing the 90-day ban on entry to the U.S. by citizens of 7 predominantly Muslim countries, although that's not really the issue here, because 90% of Muslims worldwide were not mentioned as part of this ban. These are specific countries that the Obama administration had identified as having particular ties to radical terrorism. So it shouldn't have been that hard. Anyway, so she was to be the successor until the confirmation of Jeff Sessions as Attorney General, which of course the Democrats have been slow walking, as we also discussed in the last hour. And anyway, the acting Attorney General, as they pointed out, refused to enforce what was a legal order designed to protect the citizens of the United States. The order was approved in terms of its form and legality by the Department of Justice, Office of Legal Counsel, the same Department of Justice that she was supposed to be, running in the interim. So it was clearly a political move. Anyway, Jeff Sessions will be in the seat soon, but talking about this, it was purely political, and obviously this was insubordination at an extremely high level, but more importantly, it was a political move to try and embarrass the president. Remember, everything Democrats now want to do for the rest of their days is embarrass the president. Joining us now, Philip Holloway, founder of Holloway Law Group, based in Cobb County, Georgia, former prosecutor, police officer. He has a wide range of experience as it relates to legal and law enforcement matters. Philip Haney's back with us. Remember, Philip was one of the founding members of the Department of Homeland Security, author of the book See Something, Say Nothing. Welcome both of you back to the program. Philip, we'll lean on your legal expertise to start here, but legally, this is not even an issue. Any intelligent attorney clearly sees this as all being legal on every front, and the media characterization of this has been purposely false.
The executive order was 150% legal. Sean, I think that Sally Yates planned to do this, to sabotage the president at her very first opportunity. There's really only two ways to look at this. Sally Yates is either incompetent or she's insubordinate, or perhaps even both. Even a D-minus law school graduate can usually think of some legal argument in defense of any given legal issue, and this one isn't even close. Congress gives the legislature plenary power, that's unbridled power, to control the borders and to control immigration, and through statutory law, 18 U.S.C. Section 1182F, they say that the president, when the president finds that the entry of any alien or any class of aliens could be detrimental to the interests of the United States, that he may, by proclamation, do exactly what he did. So if Sally Yates wants us to believe that she can't find some reason to stand up in court and defend this, she's incompetent or she's insubordinate. Either way, she has to go. The president could not allow an agency head to behave this way.
And I'll tell you, it gets even worse, and this goes to what I say, that journalism is dead and that we have a crisis of information in the country, because you have so many people in the country that are in the media that keep calling this something that it never was, never meant to be, never would be, which was a Muslim ban. Chuck Todd, for one, saying, well, Trump established a religious test for refugees from Muslim countries. Philip Haney, nothing could be further from the truth. Otherwise, I assume the 40 other majority Muslim countries would have been added to the list, right?
Well, not only that, there's a reason why some of these countries have been designated special interest countries. We call them SICs. There's a list of them. And in 2015, the U.S. Southern Command, General Mattis was commander of U.S. Southern Command from 2010 to 2013. They published statistics in September of 2016 that saw a total of 331,000 migrants enter the southwestern border between the U.S. and Mexico. And of that, U.S. Southern Command estimated that more than 30,000 of them were from countries of terrorist concern, a.k.a. special interest countries. So the precedent is there. The threat has been well identified for years on end. So what President Trump is doing, as my colleague said, is well within constitutional and statute law, INA, Immigration and Naturalization Authority law. He is completely within his authority to do this, and it should have been done a long time ago.
Let me ask you, Phil Haney, as one of the founding members of the Department of Homeland Security, I rarely get shocked at this point, 30 years on radio and my 21st year at the Fox News Channel. I rarely get shocked by a guest and what they tell me is happening, but the day you told me you were specifically ordered, when Obama became president, to erase and delete all of the background information, in other words, the intelligence that so many agents work so hard and diligently to get, about those that may be radicalized inside the United States of America. Explain what you were told to do and what you had to do.
Well, in 2009, I was ordered by DHS hierarchy, clear up to the executive level, to do what they called modify, which was to take out all of the linking information on 820 text records, that's our intelligence records, that were particularly related to the Muslim Brotherhood network operating in the United States. You have to keep in mind that this was 4 years before the Boston bombing. And some of the records that I had to modify at that time, taking out the linking information, was related to the Islamic Society of Boston. And the Boston Marathon bombing. So there's my first point of conflict with the administration. A bigger one happened in 2012 when they didn't come to me. They just simply deleted an entire case out of the system related to the Tablighi Jamaat network operating in the United States, including mosques like the one in San Bernardino, specifically the one in San Bernardino. They deleted the information completely out of the system in order to, what I consider, maintain plausible deniability. So they could stand in front of the American people and say, well, we did all we could.
So this was a CYA measure. This was a measure that if, God forbid, something happened and they weren't paying attention to people that were within the data system that so many agents work so hard to build, then they could say, well, he's not in our data system, and therefore how could we have possibly known? Is that the purpose?
Well, Janet Napolitano said exactly that. After the Boston Marathon bombing, she said, we didn't get a ping. Well, you mean you didn't get a ping on an individual who came back to the United States without a passport and a lawful permanent resident card? He lays it on the counter in front of the CBP officer. The first question the CBP officer should ask him is, Mr. Sarnaev, where's your passport? You cannot travel on an international basis on a lawful permanent resident card. He had to have a passport. So where was his passport? And why was he even admitted?
I might ask you the most... Go ahead, finish, sir.
That kind of corrosion is reflected in those numbers that I referred to earlier, and it's also reflected in a new GAO report that was just put out about 4 days ago. It's called CBP Aims to Prevent High-Risk Travelers from Boarding U.S.-Bound Flights, but needs to evaluate program performance. In other words, they're trying, but they need a lot of improvement. And there's a whole program already in place through CBP called pre-clearance, where CBP officers work in ports overseas in cooperation with the governments of other countries to prevent people from boarding planes and coming into the country. And even though they prevented 10,648 people from coming in, the GAO report says there's a whole lot more room for improvement and that they have not evaluated the effectiveness of their program. In other words,
I ask you this question?
Another example of what Donald Trump is trying to start to do right now.
Is there any way to retrieve the information that you were told to get rid of?
I passed it on to Congress.
So in other words, Congress should have a copy of everything that you were deleting?
Yes, it's physically possible to put it back into the system. Of course, you know what will happen when that occurs, which I hope it will. It's going to set off a whole chain reaction of questions. Obviously is going to be the first one. Why did you delete the information in the first place?
Do you know of any congressman, and you don't have to mention the name if you don't want, do you know of any congressman that you know with 100% certainty that has a copy of that which you were ordered to delete?
I will tell you that Senator Cruz, in the willful blindness hearings on the 28th of June, 2016, came as close as any member of Congress has come to actually addressing the problem. He asked specifically for that information, and you may recall what Secretary of Homeland Security said 2 days later, Jay Johnson. He didn't know me. He had not taken the time to look into my claims, and he considered it an interesting political discussion, but really about semantics and labels. So, I want to
ask you this:
Senator Cruz for that.
Do you know if anybody has a copy of what that which was told that you were told to delete?
Yeah, I had the authority to give it to Congress, and I did.
So Congress definitely has a copy. Which is anybody in the Trump administration aware that this information exists? In other words, you're talking about years of developing a database to protect the American people that, for political purposes, you were ordered to delete. You're saying that there are copies of it, so those years of hard work can be restored, is what I'm asking.
Right now they're sitting down on the bottom of the swamp. And I would like to tell President Trump, if you'd like to drain the swamp, I can tell you where some of the valves are. Let's
stay right there.
The
Don't go anywhere, Phil Haney. I want to come back and talk more with you if we can. And Philip Holloway is with us as well. 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. All right, as I continued now, we are discussing the president, obviously, firing this temporary attorney general for insubordination and an unwillingness. You know, basically this lady was saying, I'm in charge. I'm going to be the president. And, you know, to watch Chuck Schumer say, this is like a Monday night massacre. No, I would say a Monday night beatdown, crybaby Schumer, because Donald Trump did exactly what any president should do. And the fallout from this is going to be to show the entire world that he means what he says and says what he means. We continue with Philip Holloway, founder of Holloway Law Group. We're talking about the legality of it, and also Phil Haney, founding member of the Department of Homeland Security. Philip, you just heard what Philip Haney was saying, Philip Holloway, and, you know, can you imagine being ordered to erase all the information, all the data, all of the background checks, all of the classified information on potential threats within the country and being ordered to erase it?
No, Sean, it's quite shocking. That's the first I've heard it. And I'll tell you what, one of the first things that Jeff Sessions needs to do when he's confirmed, and he will be confirmed, the Democrats can delay for a few days, but he will be confirmed. I think that ought to be the subject of a Justice Department investigation right there, because I don't know this, but there may very well be some criminal misbehavior, and if so, that needs to be rooted out. It needs to be prosecuted if it has been a crime, because this is the kind of thing that the American public needs to know about, to know what their government, and if it was the prior administration covering up this type of information that jeopardized the safety of Americans, then we need to know about it. There's outrage about the executive order as to the so-called Muslim ban, which it's not, but that's what they're calling it. If there's outrage about that, there should be at least as much, if not more, outrage about this cover-up of information. You know, hundreds of foreign nationals have been implicated in terror threats against the United States. You know, we're talking about Orlando, San Bernardino, the Boston Marathon bombing, and God forbid we have another 9/11. So the idea that the United States, as a sovereign nation, cannot take ordinary measures, not even extraordinary, but ordinary measures to protect our borders is absolutely preposterous. Sally Yates apparently made a political choice, Sean, to become a martyr for this leftist ideology. She had to know she would be fired. And, you know, Jeff Sessions, I hope that he looks into what Phil has just told us about, because that is a real scandal.
Philip, have you spoken to anybody within the Trump administration high enough up that this information would get to the president at this point?
Only on background, members of the transition team, but nothing in a more formal context.
It's shocking to me. Did they take it seriously? I mean, I think what needs to happen, I think you need to address the national security team of the new administration and make them aware, number one, that years of hard work can be retrieved, two, what you were ordered to do, which makes no sense whatsoever, and the reason for doing it was political, that in case something happened with one of the people on the list that you accumulated, it was CYA on their part. But we'll have much more on this in the days and weeks to come. You're both patriots. We really appreciate you both being with us. Philip Holloway, thank you. Philip Haney, always enjoy talking to you.